Breakups are a bitch. One of the most painful experiences that you can go through is having your heart broken and losing the love of your life. In today's video, we're going to be looking into the subject of how do you get your ex back and why you probably shouldn't. Good day, gentlemen. James Marshall here. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be looking at the subject of how do you get your ex-girlfriend back. There is actually a pretty big industry based around this, trying to help men to figure out strategies to make themselves more sexy and more attractive, and to try and fix things that have gone wrong in a relationship in order to get back together with your loved one, which is obviously a pretty appealing prospect when you're in pain. The reality is that breakups, unless both of you are just like, oh, thank you very much, that was an interesting time we spent together, and here's your record collection, and you take the puppy and I'll take the couch or whatever, and everyone's happy about splitting up, which is usually not the case. What's usually the case is that there are a whole lot of painful emotions involved in the breakup process itself, and of course you are mourning and grieving for the loss of the person and the relationship itself. Right? Because in a relationship, we have two separate parties coming together, or sometimes three, coming together to build something, which is your shared lived experience for a lengthy period of time. And when that thing is ripped away from you, not only have you lost the person, you've lost that life. It's also common and understandable to look back on a relationship with rosy tinted glasses, remembering all the good times and, kind of forgetting about all the awful and toxic times and the reason that you broke up in the first place. So what commonly happens, especially for men, is when they break up with a partner, they go immediately into scarcity. Most guys don't have a plan B lined up, whereas a lot of women do. And a man who is sad and depressed and sitting at home drinking whiskey and looking through photos of him and his ex-girlfriend on their holiday to Costa Rica is not an attractive prospect. That is not you at your sexiest. Whereas for a woman, now I'm not discounting the pain that a woman might go through in a relationship and that she might well go through a period of grieving and mourning and not feeling sexy and so on. But commonly, women are able to get back on the horse, as it were, much quicker. They can go buy themselves a nice new red dress, go out with some girlfriends, have a couple of Pinot Grinos, whatever, I don't know anything about wine, a couple of Cab Savs, and some dude will be like, she looks a little bit vulnerable, and go over and talk to her, and very soon she'll be able to get into something with a man, that same day that she breaks up, if she chooses. So often breakups fall pretty heavily on men's heads, and often men go into kind of shock and denial, and often some kind of self-abuse, right? Whether it's drinking too much or getting angry or doing something that's probably not very constructive. And sometimes the actual impact of the breakup itself doesn't really hit a man for, let's say, 6 months after the fact. Why? Because men are not that, on average, emotionally intelligent. They're not that good or haven't practiced processing emotion, which is an important part of the grieving process. If we just push it down, shove it down, try to pretend that we're okay, or try and drown our sorrows, as it were, the feelings are still there, and you're going to have to deal with them at some point, and they may well come out months in the future in some kind of, let's say, not constructive way. And so it can take quite a long time, months and sometimes years, for a man to get over his ex-girlfriend. So it's understandable that coming out of that, you've been out of it for a month, you haven't been laid, you're feeling lonely, you're remembering the good times you had with your gal, it may seem like the obvious choice to try and get her back. Also, what happens is, if a guy is proactive at all or has some choice, he starts going out into the dating world, starts dating around. Inevitably, the first couple of girls he goes on dates with don't stack up to his girlfriend. Now, it may be that objectively they do, like she may actually be a nicer person or someone who cares more about you, or a more interesting person, or slightly sexier or something, but you don't have the same kind of investment of time and emotion and shared experience in a new person as you did with the girl that you dated for 2 years, for example. So it can seem like this chick just doesn't stack up to Susie, right? And then we can idealize Susie in our head as being something that was extraordinary, when quite possibly she was just a girl. She was just someone that you spent some time with and invested heavily into, and maybe she invested heavily into you. And so it appears that that person is far more unique, special, and valuable than the girls that you're out dating, when you first come out of a relationship. So you can see that it's understandable and an easy thing to think nostalgically and go, okay, well, how do I get my ex back? And then I type that into YouTube, and then a whole bunch of videos will crop up promising you that you can. Can you? Sometimes, mostly not. Should you? The answer is almost always no. So let's get into that. So about now in the video, I've lost the guys that were like, how do I get my ex back? And they're like, oh, he's telling us not to. Fuck this guy. I'm out of here. I'm going to go and listen to someone who tells me what I want to hear. That's not my job. My job is to tell you what I have learned from the 17 years of coaching men and seeing the many, many horror stories of men coming out of relationships, trying to get back together with exes, sometimes succeeding and usually not for their own benefit. Because what I have personally seen in the many men that I've seen examples of this and friends, and also in my early days when I tried this myself, was that even if you can get back together with the girlfriend, it's very unlikely to work again. You will have diminishing returns. If you dated her for 2 years and then you guys messily get back together, probably you'll be together for another 3 to 6 months. And then whatever were the inherent problems within the relationship, unless they have been very maturely and intelligently dealt with, which is possible for some people, but most commonly it doesn't happen, then you're going to go through the same heartbreak and drama and someone cheating and slashed tires and broken plates and all of the nastiness that often goes along with breakups. Breakups are the shittiest part of the relationship, but for most relationships, they will be part of the relationship. Most relationships don't start at the high school dance and end with you both holding hands together, holding hands together at 88 and, taking your last breath together as you go off into the afterlife to spend all of eternity in the Elysium fields together. Probably that's not going to happen. Most likely, you're going to sequentially date women throughout your life for 6 months, for 2 years, for that 7-year one, which you'd almost ended in marriage. I mean, not ended, progressed into marriage. And then something fucked up, and then you're going to go through that cycle a number of times in your life. So it's important to not only learn about how do I approach women, how do I seduce women, how do I get them into a relationship, how do I maintain and develop a healthy relationship, that's a big one, and also how do I deal with the probably inevitable ending to it? How can I navigate that in such a way that it doesn't have a massive amount of trauma on me or on my partner, that I learn something from it, and that ideally I'm able to walk away from that with new learnings about what it is that I need to improve in myself, what skills I need to develop in terms of maintaining relationships, and becoming more judicious about your choice of partner. So many relationships are doomed from the very beginning because the people are completely incompatible, right? Because they're one of them is codependent and one of them's avoidant. Because someone has narcissistic tendencies and someone is a bit of a doormat. Because you just don't get each other, or your sense of humor or your way of thinking in the world doesn't really line up with each other. And so many other reasons why it might have been a good idea to spend 6 months with this person because you had great fun and great sex and you had some adventures together. But to understand when the end is the end and to be able to gracefully, or as gracefully as possible, exit from it means that, then you can look back on that relationship and go, I had a fun time with Dolores for 7 months back in 2017. And that was a good time. And then it became apparent that we're just not really compatible for this to develop into anything further. So I sat down with her and I told her this is going to end and that there's no hope of it continuing. And we tried to do it in as friendly and as a mature way as possible. And then people can have their hearts broken in the short term and feel a bit sad and miss the person and so on. But then they're going to be able to hopefully process that pretty quickly, so that maybe the breakup period of the relationship was 10% of the time and, 10 to 20% of the emotional input, and that the rest of it was spent on the good parts of the relationship. And then we don't have to roll around in the muck and the nastiness of hating each other and getting revenge and someone cheating and getting back together again and finding out once again that we're not compatible and dragging that on for sometimes years. I've seen examples of that, of people on again, off again for years, when it's so obvious from the outside, you guys just aren't good for each other. Just stop torturing each other, leave each other alone, move on with your lives. Because one of the main reasons I would say don't try to get back with your ex, which now is the new title of this video, you are blocking opportunities to find someone that's better for you. And I'm not saying better as a person or in some inherent sense of worth, but better for you as a person. If you're still messing around with, and all of your emotional energy, your love, your affection, your wanting, your longing, your care is invested in somebody that it's not going to work with, that energy is not really available to allocate elsewhere, right? To be able to go through the healthy process of a breakup, which it is actually a healthy thing to do. I mean, as I said, it's almost inevitable for almost all but one relationship possibly in your life. It's called a breakup for a reason, and usually there is a very good reason why a relationship shouldn't continue. Now, I'm not saying that it's 100% the case that you should never ever try to get back with a previous partner. There would be certain circumstances where I would say it might be worth a shot. It still probably won't work, right? Once the respect or trust or love has been damaged or broken in some kind of way, it's going to take a monumental effort to repair it, and often it's not worth the effort that you would need to put in, and it probably won't work anyway. However, just as a caveat, under what circumstances would it be worth possibly trying to get back together with somebody? This would really depend on why did you break up in the first place. If it was major betrayal and it was major repeated betrayal, right? Someone's been cheating repeatedly on the other person, then I would say don't even bother. Now, if somebody slipped up once and then immediately admitted it to the other person and was very repentant and realized what damage they'd done and vowed never to do it again, then it would be up to the other party to make a decision on whether it was worth trying to trust this person again and maybe rebuild something. And I've certainly seen circumstances where that has been the case. Humans are humans, humans make mistakes, and if they own up to them and take responsibility for them and then are willing to make active changes, then sure, you might want to give someone another chance, or someone might want to give you another chance. However, if it's been something that's been, going on for months or years, which has required the guilty party to repeatedly lie and hide and gaslight, and you find that out, walk the fuck away from that person and never speak to them again, because you can't trust them. And if you can't really trust somebody, it doesn't matter if you love them or they love you. A relationship needs at bare minimum love and trust. Right? You can love somebody who is untrustworthy. Someone who's untrustworthy can love you back. But if you actually can't rely on this person in ways that really matter to you, or vice versa, then that person is not going to be good for you in a relationship. Another instance where it might be worth giving it another shot is if the relationship ended because one person wasn't really able to commit, and then they've made a very profound decision that now they do want to commit. This is more likely to happen on the male, not really ready or willing to commit side, than on the female side. Because ultimately you as the man then has the choice to think, well, this person's now walking away from me because I'm not giving them the level of intimacy that they require. Am I willing to now compromise my freedom or whatever else it is that I wanted to do? And is this person valuable enough to me? And then therefore I will need to go and make some kind of committed grand gesture and then commit to that. That now, okay, cool, I am going to go all in on this relationship. And then possibly the other party, the woman, might take you back. If the woman breaks up with you, almost for any reason, you probably can't get her back. Right? Women tend to be better at processing emotion faster. They're taught that, and maybe they're inherently better at it than us. And if they decide that they don't respect a man anymore, or they're not attracted to him anymore, or they're mildly disdainful or disgusted by him, that guy almost impossible for that guy to recreate the image in her mind of like her powerful, sexy man that she perhaps once saw you as. So if she breaks up with you, it's a pitiful, pathetic, and ultimately futile thing that you will be trying to do to try and change yourself and do all this stuff to win and impress the woman back once she's already decided that you no longer fit within her boyfriend-lover category. Now you have been moved into the ex-boyfriend category, and anything you do to chase or to try and impress her is going to make her feel less respect and more disgusted by you. So save yourself the lack of self-respect and the humiliation of trying to grovel or plead your way back into the life of a woman who's probably almost certainly going to say no. And even if she takes you back sort of out of pity, that is not a good basis for any kind of relationship. It won't last. You'll go through that same merry-go-round of emotions and problems for another number of months, and then she'll dump you again. And then you're likely to develop bitterness around women instead of taking responsibility for your part, taking the L, walking away from the relationship, working on yourself, figuring out, are there areas that I need to improve in myself? Or was it all her? Sometimes it is all her. Sometimes it is all him. But often it's not. Often you have encouraged certain types of behavior, or you haven't set boundaries, or you haven't continually seduced your woman. You haven't shown your power, your masculinity to her in such a way that she feels both safe and excited, that she feels looked after, and that she can respect and look up to this man. And if she doesn't feel that, it's definitely partially your fault, and you'll need to go away and look at yourself so that hopefully you can do an autopsy on the relationship from a, let's say, an objective, dispassionate position rather than one that's fueled by bitterness or resentment. And if you need to feel that for a while, feel it. Just don't do anything stupid with it. Okay, if you feel angry at this girl and therefore women in general and relationships, okay, that's a, sort of natural part of, or like it could be a natural part of coming out of a relationship. But if you settle into that and go hardcore black pill on this, then you're only punishing yourself. You're not going to punish women. They're not going to change their behavior. This is about understanding the way things actually were and are, and how can you move on from that. And a final couple of other instances where it might be worth trying to repair things is if the breakup was based around logistical reasons, right? So a long distance thing, someone had to move somewhere to work or study or something, and the amount of time and the amount of focus that you were able to put into the relationship wasn't enough for you or her or both of you. In that instance, then if we change the logistics, if it's like, okay, it's worth it for me to move to this city to be with her, or is it worth it for me to give up on my dream of studying this thing or training under this master or traveling the world or going and exploring my sexual potential or whatever else it is that you want outside of the relationship? Is it worth compromising that so that I can stay in this one city with this girl? Sometimes the answer is absolutely yes. And I've seen relationships where that has been the case. I can think of one off the top of my head where the guy was a traveling musician, not a famous musician, but enjoying playing music. And he was away all the time. And the girl let him know that this wasn't going to work for him. And so in the end, he decided to stop playing in bands and to come and move in and live with her, and married her, and has now been married to her for over 15 years. And that was the right decision because he was ready to put down the rock and roll dream. It wasn't his primary dream in life. It was something he liked doing, but needed to do that in order for the relationship to survive. And so that was the case. So in that situation, you need to be careful though. What am I compromising? Am I giving up something that's really important to me and that I will think back on in 10 years? Let's say the relationship didn't end up working. And I look back in 10 years and go, fuck, I missed my chance there. I missed my one shot, or that thing that was really specific to being a young man, right, which wouldn't be appropriate or make sense for me to do now, and I missed out on that because of that relationship. You need to be aware of, would that be worth it? But there will be cases where it is. And the final case would be if there has been no major damage done. It's just that you kind of drifted apart and made a decision to leave each other, and no one cheated and no one was nasty or no one caused any major damage and there was no hysterics. It was just a fairly mature breakup. And after some time, you guys run into each other again without, you go off and live your own lives, but you come back together because due to some circumstances, or you call a person to meet for a coffee, and you realize that actually you've both gone out and seen what else was available and decided actually this person is the shit in a good way. And you might want to try it again from a new perspective. Okay, there are caveats. There are circumstances where it might be not necessarily the right thing, but it might be a possible thing to get back together with your ex-girlfriend. However, the vast majority of the time, you shouldn't even try. It's called a breakup for a reason. Damage has been done. You've gone through the arc of emotions, of courtship, of getting together, of knowing each other, of sharing a life for some period of time. And for whatever reason, it's reached an impasse and it's no longer going to serve you or her or both of you. It's time to man the fuck up and cry to actually process your emotions in ways hopefully that are less destructive. If you need to go out and get wasted, get drunk and complain, women are always, let me tell you about women. You think you got a story. Okay, if you need to do that in the short term, go for it. It's like, James endorses binge drinking to get over exes. No, but it's like, okay, you got to do what you got to do. Go and punch a punching bag and scream and shout in the woods. Complain to people, and have a whinge and have a complain to people that will listen to you. People will listen. Good friends will listen to whinging about an ex for a week or two. They'll put up with that, and as they should. It's part of your job as a good friend is to listen to someone whinge about their ex. Do not whinge about your ex on dates with girls. It sounds so obvious, but I hear stories from women all the time of guys bringing up their ex-girlfriends. She always did. She was a gold digger. She did this to me. And, women are often that. And I hope you're not that. Because if I bring that into at the start of a new relationship and I start projecting onto women, or I'm showing that I'm so deeply wounded by this previous ex and I'm blaming everything on her, that is a red flag. And any book written for girls about dating will have that literally as one of the red flags, complaining about the ex-girlfriend. Even if the ex-girlfriend was actually evil, save that for later in the relationship where you might have a bit of a chat about, so what was your last girlfriend like? What was your last boyfriend like, if you want to go there? And then, yeah, sure, then you can tell a bit of a horror story as kind of an anecdote. All right, it's not that we necessarily need to hide it, but if I'm front-facing with that, that shows that I'm clearly not over it, and no woman wants to bring a man in to start a relationship when he's clearly carrying baggage with him. All of us carry baggage to some degree from previous pains and relationships, but it is up to you. It is your responsibility to figure out a way to process it. Maybe you were very hard done by. Maybe something was terribly done to you. Maybe you drifted apart. Maybe she just gradually lost respect for you because of the way that you were behaving, or whatever the combination is. You need to go through that process of pain, of experiencing it, of feeling it, of letting it out and sharing it with somebody in hopefully a relatively healthy way. And then you need to get out there and start going on dates again. And I'll end this video with this point, and in the next video we'll go a bit more into like the process of how do I grieve, how do I get over my ex, and how do I actually effectively go out into the world to start something new. But I don't think it's a good idea for a man to stay completely celibate and single for 6, 12, 18 months. A lot of them do that because they don't have any options, or they think they don't anyway. And some of them do it out of some kind of misplaced pride or full-on commitment to a relationship that's already dead. Maybe putting it in some kind of romantic terms that I will never love again, and then this was the love of my life, and now I will never get over her, and I will be alone forever. Don't do that. That's not going to help you. Take a bit of time, be pissed off, cry, let it out, and then go out, start dating again. And be aware that you're not trying to replace your girlfriend with the first girl you go on a date. Except that it won't feel like it did with your ex. Of course not. You don't have the shared commitment, investment, time, all of the juicy emotions that come from being in love with somebody. No, it's a new girl that you just met, and you're trying to figure out how to have a conversation with each other, and it's a bit awkward. Expect that. That's going to be part of your new life, that you're a single man dating, and what you should be trying to look for, as opposed to an immediate replacement to your girlfriend, which is a common mistake. Guys go from monogamous relationship to desert, nothing, and then the first girl that comes along that'll take their knickers off and that's pretty and mildly nice to them, they will immediately try to jump into repeating the same type of relationship they had previously without taking any of the lessons or the learning, without actually developing enough choice that you can go next time and go, not that type, not that type. This one looks interesting. I'll go and spend some time with her because I have choices instead of none. How do you get those? By learning effective dating strategies. And we all know where this is leading. James is like, and where are we leading with this? The ability to go out there and meet cold strangers, whether that's in the day or the night, in the coffee shop, on the streets, at your lecture at uni or whatever it is. Having the ability to go up and start a good conversation, let the girl know that you're interested in her as a woman, and then asking her out is a vital life skill. Because if you don't have it, when you inevitably go through this process of from inactive single to dating to inactive single again, the men that are doomed to repeat the same mistakes and get into the same kinds of relationships and probably waste cumulatively years of their life staying in relationships that should have been ended, or getting into messy on-again, off-again situations, or wasting months pining over somebody who's already over you. Cumulatively, over your lifetime, that could be 5, 10, 15 years of your prime dating life, which is wasted, when it should be used going out there, meeting new women, getting on dates, dating a bunch, seeing what they're like, and then if you want to get into a relationship, choose them out of the spread that you have, someone that is going to be actually compatible and good for you. So if you'd like to learn this skill in the fastest possible way, you should come and train with me. Next April, I've got a workshop running in Budapest, Hungary, and that one's almost sold out. So by the time this video comes out, it might be sold out, or there'll be one spot left. And I'll put up a couple of extra dates over the spring and summer in Europe. So if you'd like to learn from the best in the world at teaching men of all colors, stripes, races, heights, and so on, this fine art and science of connecting with strangers in a way that is natural and direct, then I'm your man. Click the link below for full details. And stay tuned for part 2 of this video coming out very soon. This is James Marshall signing out. Peace.